Hey there, it is good to have you with me tonight. Welcome. How would it feel for you if you currently work with clients, if you could know almost instantly what their inherent predispositions are chemistry wise? I want you to think about that for just a moment and just see how you think that would feel. I would also love it if you would take just a moment and say hi to me in the chat box. And let me know if you actually currently do work with clients. That will help me to know how to package what I'm going to share with you today. Just getting my screens all organized here. There we go. Okay, so find that chat box and give me a little shout out here. Let me know that you're there. And let me know if you're seeing clients now. Okay. All right, so while you're doing that, and I'm just going to let you know that the more you play with me in my chat box, the more you're going to get out of me in this course. That's just, or in this mini class, that's just how it works, because your interaction in the chat box feeds my energy, right? Okay, so we're going to be talking about the three foundational constitutions. Little reminder here, and we are the next go round of the Dynamic Iridology Assessment System for Health Professionals course is starting on February 27th. So if you would like more information about that, you can see the URL on the screen, and I'm just going to quickly type that into the chat box for you. There we go. So that you can grab that. And we've got Marie sees clients, and Michelle says she's a massage therapist, reflexologist, and just started health coaching. Welcome, Michelle. That's a powerful set of tools you've got under your belt. And Marie, so good to have you with me. We've got Indy G with us too. Fantastic. So as we get into our information today, I just want you to remind you that this information is for education only. It's not meant to diagnose or prescribe. You are responsible for any results, good or bad, that result from using this information. Okay, so as we're starting to learn our three constitutions, we need to know first off, what is iridology? Right? Iridology is the science of studying the iris of the eye, the colored part of the eye. We look at the color, we look at how the colors are varied and how there might be little patches of other color. We look at different textures that we see in here. We also, in iridology nowadays, include the sclera, and we include the pupil shape, what's happening at the edge of the pupil, all gives us more information. Helps us to understand our clients better. It doesn't give us disease names, but it certainly does help us to understand where we are going with this. So why would you want to learn this? Well, because the iris itself gives us the genetic predispositions. It shows us where the strengths and weaknesses are. The sclera gives us some genetics and a lot of the dynamic stuff. The what the client is, what's going on for the client right now. Where are the hot spots? Where are the places that need to be nurtured? And the pupil size and shape and the texture of the edge of it teach us about spinal alignment and about organ and system functions as well. So there's so much information in here. And of course, we want to do this so that we can assess our clients more quickly and accurately, so we can stop working unpaid overtime developing client protocols, stop overwhelming our clients with over-the-top undoable programs, and create programs that will increase client compliance, success, and long-term retention. Right? You don't want your clients in for just one session. You want them for life. Right? That often means seeing them 3 or 4 times, and then they're feeling great, they disappear, but when they run into trouble, they'll come back to you. We also want to use iridology to create faster and deeper rapport with our clients and to help us see more clients with less energy or time invested, but not short-circuiting what they're doing, not shortcutting anything here. We also want to do iridology so we can increase our income by working more efficiently without raising our fees. So I'm Judith Cobb, and quick introduction. Some of you are new to me. I've been a holistic health practitioner. I started studying in 1979. You can do the math on that one. And I started as a practitioner in 1981. I have a husband and 7 children and 10 grandchildren. So today I want to really focus on those 3 primary constitutions. They teach us so much. And if we can start there, we can build on that and work from there, right? Like I said, I've been in this industry for well over 4 decades. I've studied iridology under 8 different instructors, 3 different styles, and I've really morphed how I work with my clients. With iridology, the way I teach it, you will be able to do faster assessments, be more accurate, develop better and faster rapport, and you can throw away your intake form, right? That is an important one. Throw away the intake form. You need a release form, but you don't need a questionnaire when you do iridology the way I teach it. I am one of only 10 level 3 certified iridology instructors in the world. And IPA just started issuing badges a few years ago, so I've got the last few of them up here. And so I'm pretty excited to be one of 10. I was one of the first 3 that certified at this level. Over the years, I've studied herbology and nutrition and aromatherapy to a certain extent, and flower essences to a certain extent, and biokinesiology. And I was a certified childbirth educator for a while. I'm constantly learning. Does that sound like you? Are you a perpetual student? Yeah. Let me know if you love learning. Marie says yes. Yes. And Michelle, yes. So good. So good. I'm also a member of 2 nutrition organizations here in Canada, Canadian Association of Holistic Nutrition Professionals and Canadian Association of Natural Nutritional Practitioners. And I'm a professional member of the Alberta Herbalist Association. Okay, that's enough of the dry stuff. Let's have some fun, right? Let's have some fun. So as we look at our first iris type, this is the first constitution. We divide the eyes into 3 basic categories based on their color. There's a lot more than 3 colors there, so we lump a whole bunch of them together, right? And then from there, we can break it down when we're looking at further subtypes and so on. Now, feel free to type in questions into the chat box. If it's something that I can work into the presentation, I will. If it's not, it'll just get put back on the back burner, but give it a try. When we do constitutional iridology, mapping is probably the very last step that we're going to do. Now, many of you have seen iris maps. If you've been snooping around iridology for a while, you've probably seen a map that looks like this one. That's not the one I use. I prefer one that is more clear and concise. And so, but we don't use that right off the bat, right? That's the very last thing, because we want to know the constitution first. We're not going to slice and dice our client until we know what they're made of, how they're basically put together. We need that basic understanding of their constitution, of their chemistry, in order for us to even consider mapping. Right? This is really foundational in every sense of the word. The map is our very last step, very last step. So this is a quintessential example of a lymphatic iris. So lymphatic is what we call it when it's a blue eye. Now, here are some things to be aware of, though. It doesn't have to be completely blue. It will have some blue in the iris, and you will be able to see the fibers. We call these fibers, they're really called trabeculae, but we'll call them fibers. It's just easier. So if you see any blue, it might be just the tiniest little patch of blue poking through, and fibers, you have a lymphatic eye. Now, there can be other colors. We're going to look at a few other examples, and you're going to see the variety of different colors that we can have in a lymphatic eye. When we are looking at a lymphatic eye, we know there are some common health concerns that we see more frequently in the lymphatic eye. These concerns center around mucous membranes, acid levels, and the lymphatic system itself. Okay, we're going to dive into that a little bit more. For the lymphatic eye, for every eye, we start with one particular question. Is there a personal or family history of anything? Right? We want to know, are there things running in the family? And beyond that, with our lymphatic constitution, with that predisposition towards mucous membrane, acid levels, and lymphatic issues, we're more likely to see things like asthma, allergies, arthritis, eczema, psoriasis, and kidney issues. If you've got your anatomy and physiology under your belt, you will remember that all of those, so think of that, asthma, allergies, arthritis, eczema, psoriasis, are all acid imbalance situations, often mediated by the kidneys, right? So those are all connected. So I'm not looking at little tiny details like these little bits of pigment in here yet. That's, further down in the assessment. I'm not looking for fibers like this that are running off across the other fibers. That's again for a future step in the assessment. I'm only going to focus really on markings that are important to my clients. So assessing constitution, I know this person tends to run over acid. Their eyes tell me that. I know I'm likely going to see more of the mucous membrane kinds of things, some lymphatic system kinds of things, some inflammatory kinds of things, those acid imbalances, right? And so I'm just going to hold that in the back of my brain as I'm thinking about what my client's symptoms are and what I know about the client before I start asking them questions. So again, I'm not looking for other details yet. Now, that doesn't mean that if these, let me rephrase that. I always want to know what my client's primary concern is first. Like, what would you like my help with? Now, if my client says they have lung problems, I'm certainly going to be thinking that can be an acid issue with mucus and those respiratory passageways. That's likely going to mean that I'm going to focus looking for things that will tie into lungs. Lung zone, maybe that might be a bit of mapping, but really I'm going to focus on the acid levels first. Now, if they do have, for example, a lung issue, I'm not going to look just at the lungs. I'm going to look at the lung zones. I'm going to look at bronchioles. I'm going to look at acid tendencies. I'm going to look at kidneys. Kidneys have a lot to do with the lungs, right? I'm going to look at lymphatics. I'm going to look at skin. If the skin has issues, the lungs probably will too. I look at stomach and intestinal tract, since all of these organs also have an impact on the lungs. I'd also look at specific areas of the sclera and the pupil shape, although these again add more depth to the assessment and they are not specific to the lymphatic system. So because I know that a blue-eyed person is more prone to mucous membrane imbalances, right, producing too much mucus, mucus is acid, that they're prone to kidney kinds of things because that regulates acid, I'm going to want to know what their diet is. Right. I'm going to want to know if they have any other symptoms that could tie into the mucous membrane or the inflammatory or the acid kinds of channels. We've got to tie this together, right? That's what we need to do here. That's one example of a lymphatic eye. Here's another example of a lymphatic eye. There are many shades of blue. We can have that beautiful clear blue like what we saw in the first image. This is a steel gray blue. This is still a lymphatic iris. A little bit of that steel gray blue poking through in areas. And we've got lots of visible fiber. We've got lots of other colors here too. But the fact that we have the steel gray blue and visible fibers means this is a lymphatic eye. So we are still thinking about acid, mucus membranes, asthma, allergies, arthritis, and so on. There's no such thing as a brown-eyed lymphatic. No such thing as a brown-eyed lymphatic. We are going to look at brown eyes in a moment, Indy. No such thing as a brown-eyed lymphatic. There may be a lymphatic eye that has a lot of brown in it, but you will always see some blue. If they're lymphatic, you will always see some blue. That would be very unusual to see an eye that was heavily pigmented with brown and still had blue poking through. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it would only be called lymphatic. We wouldn't add the brown-eyed descriptor to it. It would just be lymphatic. But the other colors give us more information. That's information that's lessons for a future time, perhaps. We do often have different color overlays in our eyes, and especially with lymphatic, it's easy to see these, right? Because blue is just such a light color that when we have the yellows and the oranges and the browns and the golds, they show up really well on a lymphatic iris. People who have a lymphatic constitution are a little more predisposed to thyroid issues, even when there are no indicators in the thyroid reaction field. Remember that the thyroid and parathyroid imbalances can lead to calcium assimilation issues, right? You need acid levels in the right places to assimilate calcium. Typically, a lymphatic person has acid in the wrong places to assimilate calcium. They often do not have enough stomach acid, and that leads to too much systemic acid. Systemic acid eats up calcium. It doesn't help us to assimilate it. Does that make sense? I'm hoping that's a reminder of what you've learned in anatomy and physiology, that systemic acid eats up calcium. It doesn't help you assimilate it at all. So we want, does that sound familiar? Or is that news? Is that brand new to you about the calcium? Let me know if that's new. Could bloodshot eyes be a symptom? You have to know more than that, Marie, to know if bloodshot is a symptom. Okay, you have to know, did this person just spend 2 hours crying their eyes out? Or is this someone who's just come in from camping and they were in campfire smoke for like 4 hours and now their eyes are really sore? Or are their eyes always bloodshot? So we need to know some information before we assess, because it's either a surface irritation or it's something deeper, right? So we need more. Michelle says the information about calcium was new. Yeah, all calcium doesn't end up where it's supposed to. Calcium serves so many different roles in the body that it often gets sidetracked and gets, what would be a good word? It gets sucked into other areas to take care of immediate crises rather than being deposited into bones and teeth, right? So we need to watch that. So if we see someone who has a lymphatic eye, we're going to listen and watch for indications of thyroid, parathyroid. So we need to know our symptoms. And we need to also then be aware of if they do, and we can ask them straight out, is there a personal or family history of thyroid or parathyroid issues? And then, of course, we are going to get the answer about, yeah, there's a family history of, or no, there's not. Our goal here isn't to use iridology like some kind of a crystal ball. This is so not a party game of guess what's wrong with me, right? We are using the eyes in conjunction with the symptoms to help us understand why the symptoms are there. Marie says, or let's start with Indy. I think I understand that calcium is a buffer, but to relate to a system is forgotten for me. Ooh, Indy, time to do a brush up. I'm going to let you know, if you need to do a brush up, the 2 books I recommend. So this is a little off topic. The Anatomy Coloring Book. This one is specifically by an author named Kapit, K-A-P-I-T. And the Physiology Coloring Book, also by Kapit, K-A-P-I-T. Brilliant books for that little refresher when you've forgotten some things, right? Marie says, I was wondering if it's a sign of calcium buildup in the eyes. No, it is not. Bloodshot eyes are not a sign of calcium buildup. This is one of my students. She's a naturopath in Australia. And when she had taken my course, she said, I'd already taken iridology as a part of my studies as a naturopath. However, Judith's course, Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology, we've just changed the name to Dynamic Iridology, surpassed my previous training, instructor content delivery, and documentation and support. Iridology has certainly reduced the time required for prioritizing a treatment plan. Iridology, without a doubt, has been a huge game changer to my practice. I love that. Indy. Oh my, I think that's, oh my word, thanks. Okay. All right, fair enough. I hope that we're making sense here. Let's look at the brown eyes. This is a pure brown eye. Okay, so what do you notice about this eye that's different from the lymphatic eye? What are you seeing here that is different? No fibers, Marie, good job. Got no fibers. We're not seeing fibers. We're seeing these. These are not actually fibers. We're not seeing the threads running out the way we did before. What's the other thing that you are not seeing in this eye? Remember with lymphatic, we said there would be blue and there would be fibers. What else are we not seeing in the hematogenic eye? We're not seeing fibers, and we're not seeing blue. Yes, Michelle, good job. Gold stars. Love it. We're not seeing blue and we're not seeing fiber. We're not seeing green. We're seeing browns and golds. Now, when we have the hematogenic iris, these people, their weak links tend to be blood and liver. Now, that doesn't mean that every person with a hematogenic iris is going to have blood and liver issues. It means they are more predisposed to them. Okay. And so with that, and same with your blue eyes, they're more prone to acid imbalances like asthma, allergies, arthritis, skin and kidney problems. They're more prone to it, but maybe they're doing all the right things with their diet and their lifestyle, and they have none of those problems. They've learned how to control it, to manipulate it. With our hematogenic people, they are more prone to blood and liver. Now that spans a lot of things, a lot of things, right? It really does. But if they're doing the right things with their diet and their lifestyle, they may not have any of those problems. So I'm going to run, true, do not pull a trigger for epigenetics history. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love that you brought up epigenetics, Indy, because that's exactly what we're talking about here. Genetics and epigenetics. So I'm going to do a pop quiz here. I'd love it if each of you could come up with one thing the liver does, and you're not allowed to say it filters or detoxifies. I want more detail. Can you specifically list, each of you, one thing? Whoever gets the first answer in gets to claim that one. The liver doesn't really create lymph. No, lymph is a part of the bloodstream. It's part of the fluid of the blood. A storehouse for what, Michelle? I'm going to hold your feet to the fire here. Figure if I abuse you a little like this, then when you enroll in the class, you know what you're up for, right? What does it store specifically? It stores many things. Can you name one of them? What are some other things the liver does? Cholesterol. Marie, what does it do with cholesterol? It does many things. What is one of the specific things it does with or for or about cholesterol? Enzymes. Enzymes for what, Indy? What specific enzymes are you referring to? Because it makes a lot of them. Which ones are you thinking about? Oh, I know you're all thinking, it's so mean, so unfair, right? This is the level we need to understand the body at when we're doing iridology, right? To prep the chyme for the small intestine. So you're talking about digestive enzymes. So that's not quite right, because digestive enzymes come from the stomach lining, not from the liver. Okay. Michelle says blood. What about blood, Michelle? Indy says that's the pancreas. The pancreas secretes enzymes into the small intestine, not into the stomach. Okay. We're going to drill down here. Marie Smith says breaks down fats. Okay, it does. It does break down fats. Okay, that's probably the closest accurate answer we've got. This is good. Indy says, I've got my directions wrong. Oh no, Indy, we're throwing you a lifeline. Let's get you straightened out. Okay. What are you thinking here? This is a really good place again. You know, go get an anatomy coloring, go get a coloring book, get a physiology coloring book and do them. Literally color your way through them. These aren't just coloring books. Opposite each page, they have amazing explanations, right? So you've got the page, then you've got the explanation. So good. So Marie says it produces bile. The liver does produce bile. Yes, yes, it does. And bile does what? Okay. Michelle says trades out dead blood cells. That's more a spleen job. The spleen recycles the dead blood cells and puts the usable parts back into the blood, and the liver retrieves those and can use them to make new blood cells, right? So this is good. Well, not quite. To a certain extent, yes. Indy says gallbladder and bile. Yeah, so bile from the liver to the gallbladder, and then the gallbladder releases it into the small intestines when there's fats present in the small intestine, right? Fantastic. Okay, good. We're kind of getting the roll here, kind of getting in the roll. Good. So when we're talking about our hematogenic people, they are more prone to issues with their blood. So making blood, keeping their blood healthy, and they're prone to more issues with their liver. Now the liver truly does 500 plus different jobs. And you and I are not going to memorize all of them, but we will need to know a lot of them in order for us to function in an iridology world really well, right? So important. So people with these hematogenic eyes, again, are prone to liver and blood. Now, there's some extra things that kind of tack onto the sides of that concept of liver and blood. Spleen is one of them. Now, spleen is what actually does the recycling of the blood cells. It breaks down the cells that are old and starting to fall apart and allows the body to recycle usable parts. Stomach and digestion play a huge role in everything from blood. And of course, the liver impacts digestion to a certain extent, although it doesn't secrete anything directly into the stomach. We are going to include the periphery things of circulation and heart in with blood, varicose veins, pH. These hematogenic people tend to be more alkaline, right? They actually need more acid in their body to promote mineral assimilation. So we're often having to build the acid here. Mineral balance is often precarious because they don't have the acid levels to assimilate calcium or any of the minerals that require acid. So again, we need to build up their acid levels. Their endocrine system and their metabolism often are out of balance because endocrine and metabolism require minerals to function. So if they aren't able to assimilate minerals, if they don't have enough acid to assimilate minerals, they can't keep their hormones balanced, right? Are you seeing the pathways here? Is this making sense? So depending on what symptoms or imbalances your client wants help with, the questions you might ask based on iridology could include things like, is there a personal or family history of blood imbalances? Allergies due to liver imbalances, because our liver is supposed to mediate many of the allergic responses. Immune issues. Did you know that about 10% of your liver's mass is dedicated to immune system functions? Hormonal issues. Remember, the liver picks up the carbohydrates, turns them into cholesterol. Cholesterol, yes, does things in the circulatory system, but it's also the foundational building block for hormones. When the hormones have done their job, they go back to the liver, and the liver breaks them down for excretion, right? What about our blood lipids? So there's your cholesterol, your triglyceride kinds of things. And weight issues. People who have weight issues often have a liver that's very out of balance. Now, you wouldn't ask all of those questions, like, do you have a personal or family history of every one of those things? You wouldn't do that in an appointment. You would pick and choose the questions that would relate to your client's situation. Now, do you know anyone who's got hematogenic eyes? If you do, drop a comment in the chat box that you know someone who has hematogenic eyes. Do you? Michelle says yes. Marie says yes. Yeah, most of us do. Hematogenic eyes are the most prevalent eye color on the face of the planet. Marie says yes, with liver issues. Oh my goodness. Okay, there we go. Now, I want to clarify here, Marie, and thanks for triggering this in my brain, that when we see someone who has a lymphatic eye, that doesn't mean they cannot have liver issues. It just means that is not usually their primary predisposition, whereas with a hematogenic eye, it is their primary predisposition. and they are more likely to have liver issues, right? So your eye color does not preclude problems. It just increases your chances of problems in a specific area. Fantastic, fantastic. What about all these other markings that we see in here? Got lots of different shapes. We've got different colors in here, lots of stuff. That's exactly what we go into in detail in the dynamic iridology course, right? We spend lots of time digging in deep. This is the lovely Michelle Davies. She's a CMP, RNCP here in Canada. She says, I've studied iridology with David Pesek, who, by the way, just passed away a couple weeks ago. One of the big names in iridology in North America. He was only 75 years old. So she had studied with him years ago, had his level 1, 2, and 3 certificates, and iridology in professional practice with Darko Purse in 2012. But she said this about dynamic iridology. This is the most amazing iridology course I've taken. Judith's course is top on my list. Judith's iridology course is very complete as it contains the most accurate iridology, including sclerology, and we do pupil tonus as well. And most importantly, how to put it all together to make a proper assessment. I feel very confident in my nutritional practice now. I love that. So good, so good. All right, the biliary eye type. What do you notice about this type of eye? What do you see and what do you not see in this eye? Think of our markers, blue and fibers. What do we have here? I'm hoping someone is doing lightning fingers and typing things in. You see fibers? Yep, you see fibers. The rings are irrelevant when we're talking about primary constitution. They're important on another level. So we see some fibers. Do you see any blue? Is there any blue in this eye? Blue around the edges? Okay, the blue around the edge is actually on the sclera. So that's not going to count. So we're going to go with no blue, no blue. You see a ring around the pupil? Brilliant. So what we want to focus on here is that continuum. Lymphatic was blue and fibers. Biliary is no blue, yes fibers. Hematogenic is no blue, no fibers. So the continuum is always looking at, do we have blue and do we have fibers? With biliary, there will be no blue, but there will be fibers. Okay, so, I've studied several different styles of iridology, and the one that I learned very first, like 45 years ago, that makes me sound so old, was that an eye like this was an eye that needed cleansing. We were taught back then there was only blue eyes and brown eyes. Anything else was toxic, needed cleansing, and if we did enough cleansing, we would turn this eye blue. Right? That's what we were taught. And there's still people out there teaching that now. We now know that is absolutely incorrect. And that's actually one of the things that made me leave that style of iridology when I heard about the constitutional style. Because I had people with eyes like this, and I was telling them, oh yeah, we're gonna do this cleanse with you, special diet, I know you'll be really good with this. And they were, and we're gonna see these eyes turn blue. We're gonna, all this brown, all this orangey gold color in here, it's all gonna go away. You're gonna have blue eyes. They never did. They never did. And it was so discouraging. But I was taught this. And then we learned that the teachers who had published books about this, saying that the eyes would change, had used colored filters on their photography, or they had used two photos from different people, using one as the before and one as the after, which is really unscrupulous, right? Not cool, not cool. So we now know that eyes do not change color in that way. And so sometimes we'll see more pigment come into an eye. That would be an epigenetic cue, right? And when we think about it, Indy says that's unfortunate. Yes, I'm hoping you're meaning it's unfortunate that people were unscrupulous, because, it's just really sad to see that in an industry, right? Yeah. And so a lot of people will ask for an iris assessment thinking that if they do a cleanse, their eyes will change color. And we have to educate them that no, that is not how this works. That why we're really doing iridology is to understand how your body works, so that we can find the right things that you need to do to improve your health and feel strong and healthy. Right now, I'd far rather you feel strong and healthy than that we changed your eye color. Right? That's the important thing, is improving the health, right? Improving how the body functions as much as we can. So we don't talk about cleansing in that way. We talk about cleansing as it's necessary to help us get the body back on track, but not about changing the eyes. So when we have a biliary constitution, this is often someone who has a blue-eyed person and a brown-eyed person somewhere in their bloodline, right? Usually the offspring of blue and brown or blue and biliary. So we'll often see gold in here. Just like we saw gold in the hematogenic eye, we will often see gold in the biliary eye. And as somebody pointed out, who was it? Indy. We will often see this darker ring at the center of the eye surrounding the pupil, very common in the biliary type. So when we see the word biliary, what does that make you think of? What do you think of when you see the word biliary? Billy. Bile. Yeah, Indy, good job. Bile. Yeah. We're talking about bile. We're talking about hepatic functioning. Hepatic functioning. So when we have a biliary person, here's another beautiful biliary eye. Fibers are not quite as prominent, but they are still there. We have the yellows, the golds, and the browns. We've got the darker central area. We even have some extra little patches of pigment in this eye. Questions to ask for these people to help get their story are center around digestion, including stomach issues of all kinds, the liver. Now remember, that includes immune function, lipid balance, blood sugar balance. Liver and pancreas work together on that blood sugar balance, triglycerides, allergies, so much more. We want to ask about gallbladder, right? That's important. And we want to ask about pancreas again, because liver and pancreas work together. Marie says bowel movements, we always ask about poop. We just always do. It doesn't have to be biliary. I always want the lowdown on the poop for every client, because that gives me so much information, right? So with this, I'm really asking questions more about digestion, liver, and pancreas. Those are our key areas of concern here, right? That's where we want to be asking questions, and that's what we want to be relating things to. So if this client comes in with headaches, how does liver and pancreas especially tie into headaches, right? If this person comes in with allergies, how does liver tie into allergies? If this is a woman who comes in with menstrual issues, how does liver tie into menstrual issues? So again, we have to understand the metabolic pathways of how the liver can impact anything and everything, and it absolutely can, right? And stress and emotional issues, absolutely, Marie. Every organ has its own emotion, where it stores that emotional energy. And if that's not kept in balance, if it's gets out of control, we run into health problems. Okay, so I am curious here. What has been your biggest aha moment today? What is the thing that you're going, wow, I never knew that. That is so cool. I want to see that in the chat box. Let me know what you've learned. Some of you, I think this is your very first little introduction to iridology, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. The iridology myths, that is so good, Marie. I think you're referring to the fact that the eyes are not, you're not going to make these eyes turn blue, right? Indy says, agreed to the iridology myths. So good, so good. And Marie says, exactly, wonderful. Yeah, that is such an important thing. Understanding the constitutions by seeing blue and fibers. Michelle, fantastic. Now I want you to stop and think, Michelle, since you pointed that out. Michelle, you're doing, let me just flip back here. See, your massage, and you're getting started with health coaching. So now, even without knowing the other 49 hours of iridology training that we've got in the dynamic iridology course, the next time you're with a client and you're doing the health coaching with them, and you see they have blue eyes, you know that they are more prone to the acid imbalances and the inflammatory processes that that invites, right? How is that going to affect how you coach that client? If you had someone who had brown eyes, the beautiful hematogenic eyes, and you know they're more prone to stomach, liver, pancreas kinds of things, how is that, or sorry, I did that wrong, liver and blood, liver and blood, how is that going to alter the way you coach them? If you've got someone who is biliary, and you know that these people are your digestion, liver, pancreas kinds of people, how might that affect how you coach them? Right? It gives you that layer of information through which you can assess everything. It gives you a framework, a framework. Yeah, you know more what to look into. Absolutely. That is so good. Marie says a very good start. Yeah, this is, it's the framework. It's the guide. It helps you to know what direction to go, where to look, begins to narrow down recommendations you might want to make, right? And that's just, you've had like, what, 30 minutes, 25 minutes of iridology. And you can walk with them as they progress. Yes, Indy, yes, yes, yes. And as we add layers and more layers and more layers, and you get to where you can actually look at an eye and know what you're looking at very quickly, you're going to be winning. This is really important. I want to give you some information about the dynamic iridology course as well. But I want to just put in here that many times you're going to see teachers who will focus on teaching you details like what is this and what is it called? What is this and what is it called? What is this and what do we do with it? What are these called? You know, what is this called and what do we do with it? And they begin slicing and dicing every single marking and focusing on everything that each marking could mean, every problem that it could suggest is going to happen. In some cases, they say it's happening now, and that's totally wrong, totally wrong. You don't know that till you know their symptoms and you know what their diet and lifestyle are like. And, but they give these long lists of markers with these long lists of recommendations that absolutely overwhelm the client. And they don't teach you how to connect the dots. Right? That's so important, so important. How does this marking connect to that marking, connect to this marking? Is that a pathway for disease? Is that explaining how things work in this body? Yes. And when you put them together and you understand the pathway, you then know that you don't come to the last point. You don't come to the second point. You go back to the root point and you start working on the root point because it's what's going to impact everything else. Does that make sense? It does not make sense to look at this one marking at a time. We need to group them together and see them as for the complete picture that they are. So, so important, so important. And that's exactly what I teach you to do. So the next go around of dynamic iridology is starting on February 27th. I don't remember how many details I've got in here. I'm going to be guessing here. If you've got a college level anatomy and physiology class under your belt already, so that could be your massage therapist, you might be a registered nurse or a practical nurse, or you might be a naturopath of some of, there's different standards across North America. You might be, what else? A physical therapist, a dental hygienist. Anybody who's got that college level anatomy and physiology is eligible to speak with me about the course. Right? When you go to that URL that I plugged in earlier, way back here, let me grab it for you again. This is going to take you to a page that gives you more information about the course and has a link for you to schedule a time to speak with me about the course, right? So if you've got the A&P and you're thinking, yeah, this sounds good. This sounds really good. Use the link. I put it back in the chat. Let's talk. Let's talk about what your goals are. how you think iridology is going to work for you. I want to coach you a little bit there to make sure that you've got a goal that is actually achievable and workable. And then, if you and I both agree that this is a good fit, I will invite you to enroll in the course. Now, I only take 10 students per course, right? I keep my groups small because that kind of one-on-one intimate group is just so important to me. And it's important for your learning, right? If there's too many students, you're going to get lost in the crowd, and I don't do that. Karen is one of my graduates. She's a certified graduate. You'll see her on the IPA website. Judith, I just returned from a regenerative detox course where iridology is implemented. I spread the word about what a wonderful teacher you are. Most people I talked with did not have anywhere near the same experience with their iridology education. They had no support, they've got unanswered questions and a lot of confusion. Mostly they finished their classes not knowing how to implement what they had learned. I feel so absolutely blessed to have been taught by you. I feel totally supported, even still as I have graduated almost 5 years ago now. It's at least 5. I don't think there's anyone out there practicing, educating, and teaching iridology like you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'm eternally grateful for your never-ending patience and support. When she says never-ending, one of the things that I do with my students is we have twice a month mentoring sessions where it's a group session, it's a group webinar. Whoever wants to come, that's one of my students or my grads, can come, and you don't get kicked out of those. So Karen still sometimes comes into those sessions, even though she knows her stuff, but she might be working on a tough case. She might just want another perspective. So she'll bring that into the office hours, even though she graduated years ago, right? And she gets the support she needs. So when she says never-ending patience and support, that's what she's talking about. I asked Karen in our Facebook group that we used to have, we've now moved it to another platform, how has this helped you? How has constitutional iridology helped you? And she said, it's helped me to understand the relationships between different organs and organ systems more in depth. That's what I was holding your feet to the fire on today, right? Getting you to think in depth about the organs and organ systems. Iridology also gives me an advantage of seeing the potential for different genetic traits and qualities that may be underlying. By observing the constitution, for example, you can extrapolate how the person's body will likely respond to applications of healing methods. Therefore, it has helped me to expand my knowledge and increased efficiency at providing more precise recommendations for health-oriented options. She has a thriving practice in Michigan that deals with gut health. She does amazing work. So, if any of these fit for you, then we really need to have a conversation. Do you want to assess your clients more quickly and accurately? Are you working unpaid overtime developing client programs? Are you overwhelming your clients with way too much information, more than they can handle in one session? Do you want to learn how to create programs that will increase client compliance, increase their success, and the long-term retention? I've got many clients who've been with me for between 30 and 45 years, right? It's pretty remarkable when we've had a relationship for that long and we're still working together, right? It's not that I see them every month. At that level, I'm probably seeing them every 4 or 5 years for a few sessions, and then they're feeling great, so they disappear until things start to go AWOL again, right? If you want to create faster and deeper rapport with your clients, iridology is the way. I want you to think about this for a minute. When you go to a doctor and you've got a problem, and the doctor asks you what is pretty much a standard set of questions, how much rapport do you feel? Now, let's turn that around. If I'm looking at your eyes, you've told me what your symptoms are, what you want help with, and I'm looking at your eyes, and now I'm creating questions that blend your symptoms with your eyes, and I'm asking you questions that would not work for any other person. These are questions specific to you. How is that going to make you feel? Is that going to make you feel like we're creating a rapport? Is that going to make you feel like I'm working to really understand you on a deeper level? Because if that's what you want, and Indy's saying, absolutely, I agree with you, Indy. That's what we want. We want that. Marie says, like a whole being from someone who cares. Absolutely. You're not just a headache. You're a whole person, right? You're not just a reflex problem. You're a whole person. And with iridology and symptoms, we can put that together and ask those laser focused questions that are individually specific. So important. What's that going to do for you? When you get practiced up, you'll be able to see more clients with less energy and less time investment. So I book my clients in 1 hour sessions typically, right? Used to be when I first started, my sessions were 3 hours long, right? I can do them in an hour quite easily. And I've got clients that I could do in 15 minutes, no problem. But my clients still book an hour because what they tell me every time is, you listen. I'll say, it would be cheaper for you to book a 15-minute appointment. We could do this in 15. They say, nope, I want an hour because you listen. Indy says, these ones are looking for answers that they haven't found. Yeah. And so this is helping. We are diving deep. So if you want to increase your income without raising your fees, and maybe even working fewer hours, but working more specifically, right? If you're thinking from today that you want to learn iridology at a professional level and have full support and be mentored in the learning process, then we maybe need to chat. Yeah. So again, if you've got your college level A and P, which I think everybody on this call does, I think, then go ahead and grab that link, schedule a call, and let's see if going much deeper with iridology could be what you need to do. I'm just going to do one more little thing here. I'm going to do a really quick full-on iris assessment of one of my clients. Let me just grab her photos. Yeah, that's what we want to see. Okay, so let me bring that up and let me do a different share. Okay, and let's grab a share here. Okay. Unfortunately, I don't have both of her photos on one slide. So we'll just start with this one. And I just need to double check. Yes. Make sure which one I've got up here. Okay. All right, so this is her left eye. Now this is an Asian woman, a young Asian woman. She's in her early 30s, and she and her husband had been trying for 3 years to have a baby, and no luck. They've been to the fertility clinic, no joy. It was not working. Petite little woman, 5 foot nothing, 105 pounds, dripping wet with all her clothes on. So she was petite. So, I found out they'd been trying for 3 years. I asked about her menstrual cycles. They were 90 days apart. That's the first red flag. That tells me very likely falling into PCOS. I cannot diagnose that, but I know the signs, right? So then I asked, did they ever call you PCOS? Oh yeah, they said that. Okay, that would have been nice to lead with, but great, we figured that out. Then I asked her, what have they done with your blood sugars? Because PCOS and insulin resistant type 2 diabetes are best friends, right? And she said, oh, they gave me metformin. Okay. And so what did they teach you about diet? Oh, nothing. They just said, take the metformin and take the Clomid and I would get pregnant. Well, it didn't work that way, right? So as I'm looking at her eyes and I'm thinking PCOS, so we've got for sure estrogen, progesterone, insulin resistance, testosterone, we've got all of that happening, all of it unbalanced. So I'm looking at her eyes. This is her left eye. As I look at this, I'm saying we've got some things, these sitting in the liver. That gives me some information. This tells me she burns through her B vitamins and vitamin C very, very quickly. And in here, this tells me that I specifically need to make sure she gets her Bs in the methylated form, right? Because she probably doesn't methylate well. And if she doesn't methylate well, that's going to make the PCOS worse. Right. Now, she wasn't overweight. She didn't look like she was insulin resistant, but her labs came back that she had elevated hemoglobin A1C. So as we continue looking, we see that in this eye, she's got, this is her left eye, correct? Yes. We've got this coming right through the ovary. And in her right eye, we've got another one coming right through the ovary. And so we've got some issues here. This actually looks more like her left eye. I might have her images reversed. Let me just see. This is her right eye. Sorry, I got that backwards. This is her right eye. I should know better than that. Right eye. This is the narrow side. So with the right eye, we've got ovary over here. Right. Did I have that right the first time? This is her left eye. And that means we've got ovary down here. So she's prone to something with her ovaries, right? So what did we do? We got her to do her metabolic temperature, her basal body, her BBT every day and chart it and share her charts with me. And we started working on her diet because metformin alone is not going to balance blood sugars. Breakfast for her was a sweet roll with juice. That's not great for insulin resistance. Lunch was white rice with Asian food that had a sticky sweet sauce on it. That's not good for insulin resistance. We got to supper, and supper, because lunch was leftovers, supper was more Asian food with white rice and sticky sweet sauce on it, right? So really not great. Her favorite form of activity was watching her husband play soccer. She herself did nothing that was physically active. So we worked hard. We worked really hard. And within 6 months, we had her menstrual cycles down in the 35-day range. Now we're talking fertility. You cannot get pregnant on a 90-day cycle. It will not work. But you can on a 35-day cycle. So we got her down to there. We got her having a really clear follicular phase, a really clear luteal phase. She had ovulation mucus, fertile mucus. It was great. And there we were for about a year. So it took us 6 months to get her there. Then we sat there for a year, working hard to maintain this, keeping her blood sugars balanced. And we were finally at the point where we had done various herbs along the way. We were doing the methylated prenatal vitamin that had methylated Bs. We were doing a lot of things to support her liver because she's hematogenic, right? So we needed the liver support. And finally, at 18 months, I laid awake all night before their last appointment. And I was trying to craft a speech that was, I've done everything I know to do. I am so sorry we've not had success. At least you've got better health out of this deal. So they came in for that last appointment, and they came in, and I'm just thinking, man, it's the conversation you never want to have with a client, right? That there's nothing else. And they came in, they said, we need to talk with you. And I'm going, yeah, they're going to fire me now. My head's on the chopping block because we haven't been successful. And they said, we did a pregnancy test this morning, and it's positive. We had a positive pregnancy test. Okay, we shed a lot of tears of joy together. We really did. We were so happy about that. But I will tell you that I could not have had the success, even though it took us 18 months. Then I saw them every month for the 9 months of pregnancy and for another 4 months after that. They were so thrilled with the support. But I could not have done it if I hadn't seen her eyes. I would have just been guessing. But her eyes told me she needs the B vitamins because she internalizes her stress. Her eyes told me she needs them methylated because she probably doesn't methylate well. Her eyes told me, with them being hematogenic, we need to be doing liver support here. And that's got to be ongoing. Liver is so key when it comes to fertility, right? Just every step of the way, the eyes guided the process. I could even see from this film at the edge of her eye that her cholesterol was off, and it was. Her cholesterol and triglycerides were off. So we knew we needed to be balancing that to keep her hormones balanced in order for her to conceive and carry the pregnancy, right? I couldn't have done it without iridology. I absolutely couldn't. That is the kind of thing you can do when you know the body and when you know the eyes and when you know how to put them together and to ask the questions. That's exactly what I teach you. You bring in your understanding of the body, bring in your anatomy and physiology. I'm not going to teach all the herbs. I'm not going to teach all the supplements. There isn't time in the iridology course to do that, but I will teach you how to draw in what you already know. If you know herbs, I'll teach you how to bring that in. If you know nutrition, I'll teach you how to bring that in. Whatever your soft skills are for communication, I'm going to teach you how to use that with the iridology so that you can craft the protocols that will help your clients be successful, and so that you can additionally create that rapport that will keep those clients coming back over the decades. So that sounds like what you want. Does that sound like what you want? If it does, then we need to chat. We need to get you into one of those slots in the dynamic iridology program, right? Yeah. So love to chat with you. If you are thinking this is the right fit, then let's get it set up. Let's use that link, find an appointment time that works. I think there's a few left, maybe 1 or 2 left for this week. And let's talk and let's see what it would take to get you into the program. So with that, my friends, that is your quick introduction to the 3 constitutions. Now, in dynamic iridology, in the course, we will talk more in detail about the physical characteristics. We will talk by Indy, take good care. Talk about physical characteristics. We'll talk about emotional characteristics. We'll talk about diet. We'll talk about supplements. We'll talk way more in detail. So with that, I must also run. I am late for attending a class. So we will hopefully see you soon and look forward to talking with you. Take care and have a great evening. Bye for now.